Welcome everyone, I am Mr. Goldenbaum, and this is Supremacy 1914. Take a look at this right here, folks. You have a Russian army consisting of a level 6 Orhan, sure, 93,000 infantry, 9 armored cars, and 5 cavalry units. This 93,000 was not 93,000 just a little while ago. Russia just got caught actively using the Maven Fiona hero. Where is she? Right here. Fiona Maeve Porter, which allows you to recruit infantry every 3 to 4 hours, every 3 hours while consuming some fish and money. Once complete, the infantry units are added to her army. So Russia had been using Fiona for at least a couple of days, if not since the start of the entire match. Yes, we did have Turkey over here use Fiona on accident, but he immediately reported it himself to the game administrators. Now, they took him a while, and they never actually went in and removed Fiona. I believe Fiona died in one of these exchanges here with Austria. Sure, whatever. But Fiona wasn't actively being used, while the Russians, on the other hand, had a force of over 160,000. I believe the actual army that had the 160,000 troops got cut to around like 83,000 or so. So I believe he must have reinforced with another stack in the area to get 93. So originally he must have had an army of north of 170 then in this vicinity, and now that's been cut significantly. He lost an entire 80,000 troops at least. We have a cheater on our hands. Now, this is no accident. This is cheating. So it sounds like they did receive a warning in addition to their troops being cut, but this significantly dampens their offensive in the area. The Russians were actually plowing through over here to Sofia, potentially threatening a lot of the soldiers here in the south, catching some of the Moroccan troops with a bit lower morale since they have been on friendly territory for a little bit. And potentially threatening the capital here in Constantinople of the Turkish Empire, which certainly would have been a huge game changer. But now this entire assault has fizzled. The Turkish troops have amassed 105,000 infantry, 4 armored cars, so a bit less than the armored car department, but they're being led by Lawrence of Arabia with 9 cavalry, in addition to a backup of Fiona over here in the rear. Though it looks like Fiona's been traveling with a balloon. And if we just take a quick look at speeds, we can see Fiona's at 36. The balloon is at 25. So he could have made it to this front a little bit sooner. Been able to get a few pot shots off at the Russian soldiers, but it's not the end of the world. This front has now stabilized, and Russia will be on the back foot going up against both Morocco and Turkey. Now, a quick little recap. The Turkish troops, I believe last time we did the recording, and it's been a little while, things have been busy, but the Turkish and Moroccan troops were able to successfully take over Szeged. I believe the Russian troops at that point were leaving the area, and they must have reinforced with this massive stack of infantry that he's probably recruiting over here out in this area. It was such a success in this area that it created a complete collapse of the entire Austrian front, allowing a lot of the fast-moving Turkish troops to capture your Budapest, go on to Krakow, Lemberg, all these areas, crippling the rest of Austria's infantry recruitment as well as resource production. Though he did have to turn around at some point, the Russians did come back and start threatening the front, but it's been looking really well. It's been looking really good. And so even though the Austrians have recaptured some of these provinces, all their infrastructure has been destroyed, and these provinces will continue to fall. Meanwhile, over on the German front, the French forces were able to capture Munich and inflict heavy casualties on the Germans, not to mention that there was a British army reinforcing the area that just marched to their death, essentially. I believe Munich may have had a partial fortification, or France may have built a little bit more, and the entire British infantry stack got entirely wiped out. All thanks to a pinning maneuver we were able to place on the Germans. There were reinforcements coming in of roughly 20,000 or so troops, maybe a little bit more, plus these armored cars on their way to Munich that would have arrived in time. But we were able to station our troops right out here of Stuttgart, and as soon as he left, we feinted another attack, and those troops immediately returned, allowing for a really clean engagement over here by the French. And with the fall of Munich, the rest of the German territory has been a bit up to grabs, and we've had the French armored car brigades make a move straight to Berlin, capturing Berlin, and as we speak, the remnants of the French armored car brigade, it looks like the rest of them repositioned over here further south to counter some of these other German troops that must have been sitting in Breslau. And as we speak, the 2nd Armored Car Brigade of France is moving on their way to Gdańsk and Königsberg on their way over to Riga, though I believe Riga in the St. Petersburg area is fortified. The Russians have been slightly reinforcing this area. It looks like they went out to try to counter some of our 1,000 stack infantry unit here. But we've essentially been playing cat and mouse with the Russians, kind of going in a triangle formation as they attempt to follow our forces. They've attempted to split up their troops, so we've just kind of taken a little bit of a detour and totally made it out of this area without them being able to capture us. The Germans were able to launch a counterattack against the French forces in Nancy with the deployment, I believe, with their hero Joffrey in the area, but more importantly, with day 6 originally ticking over, the Germans deployed their Tatiana, which is the first ranged unit that is available at the start of day 6, over on the front with Nancy. Unfortunately for the Germans, the French had a massive army in the area. The Germans positioned themselves on the border and were swiftly dealt with, resulting in the loss of both of their heroes, as well as the garrison that was holding Strasbourg. There are a few remnants of British forces in the area, as well as the Swedish forces. Now, the Swedes actually had a larger force of around 55,000 troops or so that were pressuring the French over here in the north. But the French Lawrence Corps were able to reposition over here in the north and strike the Swedish troops that were unaware of the significant French presence in the area, resulting in a catastrophic defeat of the Swedish forces. Meanwhile, the French lost negligible forces compared to the Swedes. Now, let's actually take a look over here in the north. As you can see, we've talked about the entire collapse of Austria, the collapse of Germany in the way, Russia losing a significant amount of their forces along with Sweden, but Britain has lost all of his core territory here. As you can see right now, a lot of our troops are now going to be repositioning here in Liverpool, marching over for the final invasion of Ireland. We will hit this province over here. It has no fortifications, and it is the closest route for us to hopefully land before the... Actually, let's use a different color. Before the British forces are able to reinforce this Brest area. Naval invasions are deadly. If we take a look at the original invasion plan, you had a lot of British troops stationed in all of their coastal provinces. So we were able to launch 2 naval invasions, one over here in the east, as well as one in the south, going for London. The British troops in the area were able to move out to the front. However, they did miss a gap of around 2-3 hours where they lost their opportunity to intercept our forces. So they did get a tick in, but as soon as our stack landed, we were able to wipe out all of the English troops here, as well as the capital. with the elimination of their coastal troops, we were just able to quickly mop up a lot of these coastal territories and proceed to take over the rest of the British area along with the Scottish provinces over here in the north. They will quickly fall. And with that, let's get rid of our little tool here for the time being. We were able to capture Liverpool, which had a complete harbor. Looks like we did take a little bit of damage here. That's not the end of the world. But we were able to secure a factory that is in production, and looks like we will get most of the way there, which is a huge success. We did get the capital boost, which is nice. Though we didn't intercept any building productions in his 2 double coal provinces, which is fine. But with the capture of these 2 provinces, we were able to entirely eliminate our coal deficit, which has allowed us to produce a bit more energy here. And with the addition of these 2 railroads, and it will take a little bit of time to create just with the low morale in these provinces, but I believe that once we're able to complete these railroads, we're able to bring in 2 additional harbors, we will be able to clear our entire energy deficit. Now, with this being a small 5v5 map, trade has been very important between all of our nations. We've been able to supply the Moroccans with a large amount of steel and wood, meanwhile securing some additional gas and oil for our own purposes, though this coal is going to be a huge boost because I believe the Italians may have had excess energy, but they weren't really sharing those resources. The Turks have had a pretty balanced economy, and they've also been able to supply the Moroccans with a little bit of surplus steel as well. We've been able to keep the Moroccan industries booming. We've been providing excess food over here to the front to make sure that cavalry production is in full swing. I believe the Turks are also producing cavalry here in Constantinople. Yes, you can see the Turks are also rapidly industrializing with factories. The Moroccans are also building factories, though they are just kind of completing their initial railroads. So we're going to have a really nice boost of oil and just energy overall. We've got good material production in our provinces, starting up these 2 factories. I would have loved a railroad over here in this area, but I wanted to get this day 6 factory going as soon as possible so that we're able to invest in these light cruiser units right here, which we will use as our spearhead against Sweden. Now, Sweden will be the remaining country left after the fall of Germany, the fall of Austria, the fall of Britain. The forces over here in the southeast, the Moroccans and the Turks, will be able to make a move on the Russian core territory. Meanwhile, the French will also be able to move directly for the Russian capital here through all of these German territories. Meanwhile, our forces will actually consolidate after the successful invasion of Britain. Not to mention that after Britain falls, this stack over here from the British army will entirely disappear because he will not have any units at that point, which includes a few of these additional scouts, plus the 2,000 over here. And we will be able to move our cruisers from the front line right up against the Swedish coast to begin bombardment of a lot of these territories, which are fortified. We might actually hit Oslo instead right away, since I do not see a fortification, and we would be able to pressure their double wood province, not to mention their capital, and create a safe invasion point for the rest of our army from Britain to be able to land. And wow, those lines look absolutely terrible. Let's use a different color here. Let's go over here and use yellow, and then the rest of our forces will be able to land here in Oslo. We will not leave our cruisers without escorts. We have fresh troops coming in from a lot of our core territories, and a bit further in the south. I just kind of can't pan the window that well. Yeah, I see. Unfortunately, I can pan the screen a little bit further down, but it moves. It moves the drawings as I do so. So let's see if I can line this up again. It was something like this, right? So we do have additional troops over here in Spain, and they will be used to reinforce the cruisers, because as we approach day 8, the other team will be able to start producing, or at least deploying auto, and potentially start producing submarines out of their 2 double resource provinces. It looks like, though, there are no factories. Yes to the harbor over here in the west. No factories over here. I don't see anything else that might potentially have a harbor and a factory. So it looks like we might be in a good place. I can't recall what the requirements are to be able to deploy the hero. Maybe it's just a harbor, or it's just I think it's just the day requirement. So he'll be able to deploy the submarine hero, which may be able to eliminate. Which, taking a look at the submarine hero, he's got what? Good 40 damage. That's really good. And he's got 65 hit points. Meanwhile, a cruiser would have... Take a look at the statistics. A lot less damage, a lot less hit points. So if we did leave our cruisers unguarded, they would be sitting ducks. But we will be able to deploy our own submarine hero, Otto, ourselves to lead our naval force. So if we do run across any rogue submarines or his hero, we should be able to mop them up without much casualties, maybe a little bit of infantry to soak up the damage. Now, I don't like to call games too early, but at this stage, I don't see there being any kind of a comeback. Our enemies have been almost entirely eliminated or significantly crippled. The production in France and Spain, Morocco, and Turkey is booming. We've taken really good trades so far. We've had amazing plays from the Turks and the Moroccans as well as the French. Their last hurrah may have been that large stack over here in Russia, but with that, I think they're out of steam at this point. We have almost 7 days remaining to the dot to quickly complete the conquest and put ourselves in a good position for the next round. Now, this tournament's a little bit different. There are some bonus points that are allotted to teams based on units killed, buildings produced, provinces captured. I think there's a few unique provinces as well that give bonus points. I think this may have been one of the provinces, though I think they called it something different, and I believe the other one may have been over here in the south, maybe like this Nisk, that provide us with extra points that can be used to deploy bonus units, which will be a stark contrast to the first round, in the second round to help turn the tides of war, meaning that the better you do in the first round, the better chance you're going to have of winning the second round, especially compared to a team that maybe went up against a pretty evenly matched opponent and it was decided only by a few points. They're not going to have as many points as we might potentially have should we completely conquer the entire map and continue to build a ton of production as well as units. I believe the second map is called like Tournament Islands, or it's a bit of a, not a historical map, just a very balanced map for tournaments. I've never played it, though it looked very fun. And if you've made it this far and you like the content, please leave a like, share, comment. We appreciate all the support. And with that, we will see you all on the next one.